Okay, today's topic is tangent and cotangent parent graphs. Okay. All right, let's just review a little bit. Recall that the tangent of theta can be thought of as sine of theta divided by cosine theta. And you're going to need your unit circles for today, but if we put the unit circle up, take a quick look at that. Say, for example, the tangent of 30 degrees. Now, the way we did that is we went to 30 degrees and sine over cosine, 1/2 divided by square root of 3 over 2. But I told you, since these denominators are the same number, you can ignore those. So tan 30 is 1 divided by the square root of 3. Tan 45 is square root of 2 divided by square root of 2, or 1. Tangent of 60 is equal to the square root of 3 divided by 1. And you can do this for all of the quadrants. And keeping in mind, though, that sometimes these are negative, and in this quadrant, cosine and tangent are negative. I should have written that into my unit circle. And down here, sine and tangent are negative. I think I might be off screen. I wrote that into my unit circle down here, tangent. All right, so we're going to use that as we do this. Okay. And similarly, cotangent is equal to cosine over sine. And you get it the same way. Let me put this back up here. So I'll give a couple examples here as well. So the cotangent of 30 degrees, this time we're going cosine over sine, so that's square root of 3. Cotangent of 45 degrees, it's the same, that'll be 1, and cotangent of 60 degrees would be 1 divided by the square root of 3. Now you get the same numbers over and over again, obviously, because of the way the unit circle is set up. All right, now we're going to graph these. Okay, so the graph y is equal to tan theta. All right. Now, I don't have you make a table here, but it's not bad to make a table, but like we made a table of sine and cosine. We don't have to make a table here, but let's just take a sketch of this. If we create an axis. All right, so we'll just plot some points. I'll move that up. And I'm going to put my unit circle in here. And I think I can see enough of the unit circle to do what I'm about to do. All right, so the tangent is 0. 0 divided by 1 is 0. Tangent of 30, we just wrote that down. 1 divided by the square root of 3. Okay, so here, let's make this. Okay, we're going to go. And I have your graph set up to go from negative 90 to 360. All right, so but this one won't go quite out to 360, but we'll do that on the other piece of paper. We'll just do this far, possibly. Okay, so if this is 1 divided by the square root of 3, there's 45, there's 30, there's 60. 1 divided by the square root of 3 is more than half, but not 1. Tangent 45 is 1. Tangent 60 is the square root of 3, which is 1.732, something like this. And we're going to label these points. All right, what happens at 90, though? Tangent 90 is 1 divided by 0. What is 1 divided by 0? Well, if you have forgotten, 1 divided by 0, error. That's undefined. Now, we've seen this before. What happens is when you get 1 divided by 4, so tangent 90, I'm going to write that. We'll write that right here. Tan 90 is undefined. And we've seen that. But graphically, and we've done other things that had graphically, the rational functions and so forth. That's an asymptote. So the tangent graph approaches an asymptote. Okay, so anytime we're going to get that whenever the sine value is 0, or the cosine value is 0 on the tangent. I'm going to go back up. Whenever the cosine for the tangent graph, get myself back in frame here. Whenever the cosine is 0, you're going to have an asymptote. Well, where does that happen? Look at the unit circle. That happens at 90 degrees and 270 degrees, any angle that terminates on the vertical axis. Okay. All right, well, we can sort of cheat a little bit and see what this looks like by putting it into the grapher itself. So that's what we'll do. Okay, so I'm going to put in, first of all, everything we do today is going to be in degree mode. So I'm going to go into degree mode. And we're just going to put tan of x in here. Now, sometimes I write tan theta, sometimes I write tan x. It doesn't really make any difference. You know, our book uses only radians, but the pre-calculus book uses degrees and radians. Whenever you're in degrees, you use theta. Whenever you're in radians, you use x. For us, it doesn't make any difference. Okay. All right, so then I'm going to graph. I'm going to set my window up here to graph from negative 90 to 360, and we're going to have tick marks at 90 degrees. And I'm going to go y min, y max, negative 5 to 5. That should be okay. All right, here we go. Okay, and there's the piece of it that we saw when we were just graphing. Okay, now this is a periodic function. There are asymptotes at 90 degrees here. That's 180. There's another asymptote at 270. Okay, so here is what we're going to do for the assignment. Now, I posted a document that looks like this. Get that in the screen. My little thing, these reference points are starting to wear out. Okay, so here's the document that I've posted for you. And what you have to do is draw the tangent graph and the cotangent graph and add all of the points like we did for the sine and cosine. All right, here, I'll get you started with this, because we know what this looks like between 0 and 90 degrees. Now we're going to have to come up with a scale here. Since I give you the asymptotes for this, for the tangent at negative 90, 90, and 270. Okay, so you don't have to do that, but I didn't put a scale here, so we'll make the scale. We'll make this 1, and that's 2. All right, now at 45, which is halfway here, the value of the tangent is 1. And we want to label that point. At 30 degrees, we said that the value of the tangent was 1 divided by the square root of 3. That's equal to the square root of 3 over 3. We've written it like that, which is approximately 0.577. So now that's 45. This halfway is 22.5, so 30 is like possibly, here. You can even, sort of looks like that. That's 30 degrees. Square root of 3 over 3. Okay, then at 60, it's 1.732, or the square root of 3. Okay, and you get this. And of course, 0, 0 is on this graph. Okay, and it approaches the asymptote. Now let's take a look at the unit circle and see what happens from negative 90 to 0. Okay. Let's line that up a bit. All right, I am on screen, I think. Okay, good. Okay, from negative 90 to 0, that's in here. 270 on the unit circle, but that's coterminal with negative 9. Remember, negative 90 goes this way. So that's negative 30 degrees. It's listed on the unit circle at 330, but that's a coterminal angle. Okay, the value of the sine is negative 1 divided by the square root of 3. Now our scale was about like this. And make sure you put the 45, and then there's a negative 30, and then there's negative 60. Okay. So at negative 30, this is negative 0.577. At negative 45, oh, we're going to label that point, by the way. Label it right over here. Negative 30, negative square root of 3 over 3. Negative 45, the value is negative square root of 2 divided by negative square root of 2, which is negative 1. Okay, and at negative 60, right here, the value is negative square root of 3 divided by negative 1, or negative square root of 3. Okay, so our scale is like that. That'll put the point 1.732 somewhere around here. And we'll label that as negative 60, negative square root of 3. Okay. And then we'll connect. All right, and there is the tangent graph between negative 90 and 90. Now you're going to have to fill in between negative 90 and 270, and from 270 to 360. And between negative 90, and this is 180 right here, and that will be on the graph. And this graph is going to do this type of deal. Okay. And you have to finish that. Okay, now let's talk about the cotangent. All right, let me move this up. All right, now the way you do the cotangent in the grapher. The grapher does not have a cotangent function on it. You can look at the grapher and see that it only has sine, cosine, and tangent. But remember, recall, here, let me get my other piece of paper back. That the cotangent is 1 divided by the tangent. It's also cosine divided by sine, but 1 divided by tangent is how we're going to graph this, by graph. Okay. Now, let me go back for just a second, because I forgot to do something, which I don't think a lot of you do sometimes, because I look at the tests that were handed in, and I get points on these graphs that are clearly wrong, but you would have known that if you had checked by grapher, which you didn't, obviously. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our graph and check these points, or at least some of them. Okay, all right, 30 degrees. 0.577, which is the square root of 3 over 3. 60 degrees. 1.732, which is the square root of 3. Negative 45 degrees. Negative 1. Okay, so you should check the points by grapher. Many of you don't. Okay, so this is how we're going to graph. And we'll cheat, like I said, we'll cheat a little bit on this and look at the graph before we start graphing on this piece of paper. All right. Now the way we're going to do this is, instead of putting tan in there, we're going to put 1 divided by tan of x. Okay. Now the window is going to be the same. We're doing it in degrees. Okay, and the window is set up for you, and asymptotes are provided. But if you look at the graph, for the cotangent, there's an asymptote at 180 and 360. There's also an asymptote at 0, although that's the axis. Okay, so we're going to graph from negative 90 to 360 again, and here's the graph. Okay, so the graph looks sort of like the tangent, but it's coming down from 0 through 90 and 180. Now, before we do one more thing about this graph is if I put the trace, this graph looks like it goes through 90, 0, and it does. But if I put the trace and type in 90, the grapher tells me that the y value is undefined. This is wrong. The grapher just can't do this, but I'm telling you that the point 90, 0 is on the cotangent graph. And that's usually a question on the quiz. You're supposed to plot the points, and if you don't put the point on there, if you use the grapher, you get it wrong. You just have to remember that. Okay, so using the unit circle, let's see. Yeah, I think we're on screen here. Close enough. Okay. Yeah, we're good. I can see it there. Okay, so we're going to graph some points for, again, 45. There's 30. There's 60. Okay. At 30 degrees, cotangent square root of 3 over 1. All right, our scale, we said that's about 1. That'll be 2. So at 30 degrees, we have 1.732 approximately. So this point is 30 square root of 3. At 45, cosine divided by sine, square root of 2 divided by square root of 2. Again, forget the bottoms of the fractions. You don't need to look at those. That is 45, 1. At 60 degrees, 1 divided by the square root of 3, and we've seen that number before, and you'll see it again too. That's 0.577. Okay, so 30, and we write that is the square root of 3 over 3. Okay, so okay, we have an asymptote going up like that. Now, obviously, if you look at the cotangent graph, it's going to do this. Oops. Now, again, this is a smooth curve too, much like the cosine graph or the sine graph. But there are asymptotes on the cotangent graph and the tangent graph. All right, now these points, and you can use your unit circle for this, but my unit circle is going to be off the screen, so I'm just going to write these in for you. All right, so this is 135, and at 135, the value is going to be -1. This one is 120. At 120, the value of the cotangent is negative square root of 3 over 3. And at 150, the value of the cotangent is negative square root of 3. All right, so I'm going to put this up to the grapher and check it. Let's see if we can probably fit that in over there. Good. All right. Okay, so let's test some points. I think we are in screen. Okay, good. All right, trace. Again, that point exists on the cotangent graph, as does this one over here, which is at 270, 0. So when you do your parent graphs, finish these parent graphs and put all the points on, that 270, 0 should be plotted. All right, check a couple points. 30. 1.732, which is the square root of 3. We'll go 120. Negative 0.577, which is negative square root of 3 over 3. 135. -1. Okay, well, there is your assignment tonight. I will post this document, and this will be collected, the tangent, cotangent graphs, and on the back of this, there's a 2-page document. On the back are secant and cosecant. We're going to deal with that tomorrow and the next day. This will be a 3-day assignment. I'll put another video up tomorrow about the secant and the cosecant and how you can graph those on your grapher and get the points off of the unit circle. But today, you can concentrate on tangent and cotangent, and a good portion of it's already done for you. That is, if you watch the videos, which I know many of you don't. Okay, I'll post this document for you, and I will talk to you again tomorrow. I'll put another video up tomorrow, probably. Maybe Wednesday. We'll have to see.